I was settling into my aisle seat on Flight 482 to Phoenix when I heard the voice that would haunt the next 4 hours of my life. "Excuse me, but I need this seat for medical reasons," the woman announced, already shoving her oversized leopard print tote into my personal space. Her name tag from some wellness convention read, Karen Pemberton, and she was waving what looked like a crumpled Starbucks receipt at me like it was a doctor's note. I'm not usually one for confrontation. My name's Jake Sullivan, and I work as a network engineer in Denver. All I wanted was to get to Phoenix for my cousin's wedding without any drama. But Karen had already planted herself in my seat 23A, fanning herself dramatically with a laminated yoga schedule while passengers behind her groaned and shuffled impatiently in the aisle. "Ma'am, this is my assigned seat," I said calmly, holding up my boarding pass. "See? 23A. Karen rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out of her head. "Listen, sweetie," she said in that condescending tone that makes your skin crawl. "I fly this route every single week for my wellness consulting business. I need the aisle for my circulation issues. The gate agent promised me an accommodation." The flight attendant, a tired-looking woman named Melissa, approached with the expression of someone who'd already dealt with 3 Karens before noon. "Is there a problem here?" she asked wearily. Karen immediately launched into a theatrical performance about her supposed medical condition, her elite status with the airline, which she definitely didn't have, and how she'd already spoken to corporate about this very issue. "Sir, would you mind taking another seat just to keep things moving?" Melissa asked me, clearly choosing the path of least resistance. I looked at the growing line of passengers waiting to board, sighed, and reluctantly grabbed my backpack. The only available seat nearby was 23B, the dreaded middle seat, sandwiched between Karen and a massive guy in a Dallas Cowboys jersey who was already spilling into the middle seat space. Karen smirked triumphantly as she settled into my aisle seat, immediately spreading out like she owned the entire row. She kicked off her bedazzled sandals, revealing feet that hadn't seen a pedicure since the Obama administration, and stretched them into the aisle. Within minutes, she'd commandeered both armrests, shoved her tote under the seat in front of me instead of hers, and started loudly FaceTiming someone named Brenda about her victory over the airline's discriminatory seating policies. The guy to my right, who introduced himself as Tank, and looked every bit the part at probably 300 pounds, was already working his way through a family-size bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. Every time he reached into the bag, his elbow jabbed into my ribs. Meanwhile, Karen had discovered the call button and was treating it like her personal butler bell. "Excuse me," she called to Melissa for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. "The air above my seat is too strong. Can you adjust it? Also, I need a blanket, but not the ones you give to regular passengers. I need a fresh one from first class. My immune system is very sensitive." Melissa's eye twitched, but she maintained her professional smile. 20 minutes into the flight, Karen escalated her reign of terror. She started policing everyone around her like she was the self-appointed sky marshal. "You need to turn your screen brightness down," she barked at the teenager across the aisle. "It's affecting my retinas." Then to the woman behind her, "Could you not breathe so loudly? Some of us are trying to meditate." She rang the call button again. "I need to speak to the lead flight attendant," she announced when Melissa appeared. "Due to my medical accommodation for this aisle seat, I should receive complimentary drinks. It's only fair since I had to fight for my rights as a disabled passenger." I nearly choked on my complimentary peanuts. This woman who'd just done yoga poses while waiting to board was now claiming disability status for free cocktails. That's when Melissa pulled out her tablet and started scrolling through something with increasing interest. Her expression shifted from tired resignation to something that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. "Ma'am," she said slowly, "I'm looking at our manifest here, and I need to verify your boarding pass." Karen huffed and made a big show of digging through her tote bag, pulling out essential oils, crystals, and what appeared to be a half-eaten sandwich before finally producing her boarding pass. Melissa studied it carefully, then looked at her tablet, then back at the boarding pass. "Ma'am, there seems to be a mistake," Melissa announced loudly enough for the surrounding rows to hear. "Your assigned seat is 23B. You're currently in 23A, which belongs to this gentleman." She gestured to me, and I felt my face break into the biggest grin of my life. The color drained from Karen's face. "That's impossible," she sputtered. I specifically selected an aisle seat when I booked. Melissa shook her head. No ma'am, our system shows you selected 23B 3 days ago during online check-in. You'll need to move to your assigned seat immediately. The entire section of the plane had gone quiet, everyone watching this drama unfold better than any in-flight entertainment. Karen's eyes darted to the middle seat, then to Tank, who had just opened a container of what smelled like egg salad sandwich, then back to me. "This is discrimination," she hissed. "I'll be calling my lawyer." "That's certainly your right, ma'am," Melissa said cheerfully. "But for now, you need to move to your assigned seat. We're about to begin beverage service, and you're blocking the aisle from your actual seat." What followed was perhaps the most satisfying 5 minutes of my entire life. Karen had to gather up all her belongings, her tote, her meditation crystals, her emotional support water bottle, her neck pillow that she'd already inflated, and squeeze past me to get to the middle seat. Tank, helpful soul that he was, refused to get up, forcing Karen to climb over his massive legs while clutching her belongings. Once she was wedged into 23B, the reality of her situation became clear. Tank's shoulders took up at least 6 inches of her space. I immediately reclined my seat the moment we reached cruising altitude, cutting into her already limited room. Her tote bag wouldn't fit under the seat in front of her because Tank's giant backpack was already spreading into her foot space. She had to hold it on her lap the entire flight. "I need to get up," she announced after just 20 minutes in the middle seat. Tank was deep into his second sandwich and didn't budge. "You'll have to climb over," he said through a mouthful of egg salad. I watched her face turn purple as she tried to maneuver over his knees while the plane hit turbulence. The flight attendants suddenly became very scarce whenever Karen rang the call button. When she finally got Melissa's attention to complain about her inhumane seating situation, Melissa simply smiled and said, "You selected that seat yourself, ma'am. As you mentioned earlier, you fly every week, so I'm sure you understand our policies." Tank fell asleep an hour into the flight and started snoring like a chainsaw while slowly tilting toward Karen. His head eventually came to rest on her shoulder, and she sat there rigid as a board, unable to move without waking what looked like a sleeping grizzly bear. I took the opportunity to order a beer and some chips, making sure to eat them as loudly as possible while watching a movie on my phone without headphones until she complained and I graciously switched to earbuds. By hour 3, Karen had given up on any pretense of dignity. She was trapped between Tank's expanding mass and my reclined seat, unable to use her laptop, unable to meditate, unable to even reach her emotional support essential oils. When Tank woke up and immediately opened a bag of barbecue pork rinds, I thought she might actually cry. "Would you like some?" Tank offered, holding the bag toward her. The smell of artificial smoke flavoring filled our row. Karen just shook her head and closed her eyes, probably praying to whatever wellness guru she worshipped to make this flight end. When we finally began our descent into Phoenix, Karen had been reduced to a shell of her former self. Her perfect blowout was flat on one side from Tank's shoulder. Her designer athleisure outfit was wrinkled and stained with Cool Ranch dust. She hadn't been able to post a single Instagram story from her middle seat prison because she couldn't get a good angle without Tank's stomach or my elbow in the frame. As we taxied to the gate, Melissa made one final announcement that made my day complete. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just been informed that due to an earlier security incident involving a passenger providing false information about a medical condition to obtain preferential seating, airport security will be meeting our flight at the gate. Please remain seated until they've completed their investigation." Karen's face went from purple to white in record time. "That's not about me," she whispered to no one in particular. But when 2 uniformed officers boarded and Melissa pointed directly at our row, it became very clear that it was, in fact, about her. Turns out that claiming you have a disability to get accommodation on a flight when you don't actually have one is a federal offense. Who knew? Well, probably everyone except Karen. The officers escorted her off the plane first while the rest of us watched in stunned silence. Well, most of us were stunned. I was trying very hard not to laugh. As I gathered my belongings from my rightfully reclaimed aisle seat, Tank leaned over and said, "That was better than the movie I downloaded." I had to agree. Melissa slipped me a drink voucher as I exited, whispering, "Thanks for being patient earlier." We had to verify her seat assignment with corporate before we could act. The last I saw of Karen, she was being led to a small security office, frantically calling someone on her phone and screaming about discrimination and her rights. A TSA agent I passed mentioned something about a $10,000 fine for fraud and being placed on the airline's no-fly list. Her wellness retreat in Sedona was definitely going to have to wait for the Greyhound bus schedule now.